Good morning. At this time, we'll call the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission meeting to order. And if everyone would stand with us, please. Mike Vaught will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Mike.
Bow if you would. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together to conduct the county's business. We ask that you give us wisdom and do as your will would have us do the best for the citizens of this county. We ask a special prayer for Pettis Reed as he undergoes surgery today. We ask that your healing hand be with Pettis. In Christ's name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
That's great.
Call the roll, Gal, if you would.
Rhonda Allen.
Here.
Jim Averwater.
Here.
Veronica Buchanan.
Here.
Will Jordan.
Here.
Mike Cush.
Present.
Craig Lynch. Pettis Reed. Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught.
Here.
Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gal. We need to approve the minutes for our July 22nd meeting. Will?
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the minutes, find them in order, and I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. We mentioned Pettis Reed, one of our members. As most of you will recall, Pettis is at Vanderbilt this morning. Probably he's under the knife right now. I think he went under at 7 o'clock this morning, so y'all be thinking about him as he goes through some surgery and recovery time. He's a valued member of this board and this body, and we'll miss him the time that he's out. Item number 5, withdraw.
No,
or
sir.
defer.
Nothing to.
None, Doug. Thank you. Item number 6 on our agenda, submitted for preliminary plat approval. Item A, Stewart Springs Subdivision, Section 5. The item number is 13-1006, 42 lots, 41 residential and 1 stormwater detention lot on 32.30 acres, zoned residential medium density, located off Burnt Knob Road, Stewart Spring LLC applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is for Stewart Springs, Section 4, to the north of Burnt Knob Road. It's an extension of the existing subdivision. As far as comments were concerned, we have reviewed this, and from a planning standpoint, most of the comments we had were pretty straightforward and appear to have been addressed. However, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hill, and he's going to go over some of the drainage concerns that we have of this subdivision.
The drainage on this subdivision is a little tricky, and so I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna go through a quick description of kind of what's going on here. Doug, go one more. Go to that grading and drainage plan. This and I'll wait till we get that pulled up. There it is. This lot 163, which is at the top of your screen there, that's the detention pond. And at first glance, it looks like this pond is 14 feet deep, but it's not. From what I understand, this area of the development is what was originally used for fill dirt for other sections of Stewart's Creek or Stewart Springs subdivision. And so most of that's been excavated. And so when you look at this closely and you look at the proposed contours compared to the existing contours, what they're really doing is going in there and they're asking to kind of clean it up a little bit, just kind of square the edges up and kind of flatten the bottom out and kind of form a borrow pit into a pond, I guess is the best description of that. I think that's okay. I don't think there's any issue with that. The part I want to explain is on the left-hand side of the plat here, you can see Stewart's Creek. If you take this pond and this subdivision and look at it independently from the water that flows downstream into this pond, everything works fine. It meets our regs and it's fine. The complicating issue is that this property is just next to Stewart's Creek. The pond area is completely in the FEMA 100-year floodplain. So That's what makes things a little tricky, because the pond, under certain storm events, and certain is a subjective word because Stewart's Creek's a big creek, and so depending on where Stewart's Creek gets rained, it may be the county line or it may be 100 yards upstream from here, will make Stewart's Creek act differently. And the timing of the flooding of Stewart's Creek in relation to this pond is the tricky part, okay? So what I'm saying is, under certain conditions, this pond is going to be underwater. It's going to be, Stewart's Creek is going to back up and it's going to be completely underwater. And so I have a hard time calling it a pond if it's a completely underwater. All that being said, our current regs say, and I'm going to give you the short version of this. For residential developments, all new developments must be evaluated for adverse impacts on downstream properties. Direct discharge from the development into a blue line stream is allowed, basically if approved by the county engineer. That being said, I asked the engineer to provide us a letter basically saying that they understand that the pond does function correctly, except when it's underwater from Stewart's Creek. And I asked the engineer to write us a letter basically saying that this wouldn't cause any adverse impacts, stormwater impacts downstream from the property. They're not going to flood anyone out because of this rare situation to where the creek is in the pond. And so, and the engineer has agreed to do that and has drafted that letter. I don't have it yet, but he said he's working on it. So I just kind of want to make sure that you guys were aware of what's going. It's not a cookie cutter pond. It has water coming backwards sometimes over it. And so I think it meets our regs. I would just feel better if we had that letter in the file. I think that protects us a little bit.
Eric, clarify for me, what good does the letter do us if we're wrong?
Well, depends on what you mean by wrong.
If there are adverse effects.
That would be, then it would come down to the design engineer's judgment. It would be his liability.
So those property owners that go underwater as a result of this would go back on him.
They would probably come back on us because they always come back on us too. But yes, but I mean, I think my goal here is to protect us, and Mr. Reed, the engineer on this, he understands. And
Jamie's got something he wants to add.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Jamie Reed with SEC. I just want to state my name. Eric did a good job of describing this. Basically, what happens here is this storm event happens. This pond will address the 2 through 100-year storms, 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100. It will meet those storm events, and then within a 13-hour period, something like that, when the subdivision builds up and meets its capacity. But as the creek builds up over several hours duration, after that, it comes through there and peaks. Everything in the subdivision is well above the 100-year storm event. So the people's houses and setbacks and where the houses are going to be are well above that. We've also taken into account if some of those culverts did flood and back up, that they would overtop and go across the road and go between houses, and yet the pads are still set above the 100-year storm event. So as far as the subdivision goes in a whole, that detention pond could all be underwater and backed up in the ditches and stuff, and still the houses and the pads and stuff and the roads are going to be above the 100-year storm event. So,
Eric, were you talking about but you were talking about downstream.
we're talking about downstream.
Yeah.
We're talking about downstream. Now, and I will say this: this is important too. This is the reason we have this in our regs. Because somewhere else away from a stream, we require detention, and the reason that we wouldn't require detention is that the hydraulic theory behind that is that if you detain water that's just next to Stewart's Creek, that's typically been flowing right into the creek, you're holding that water back until Stewart's Creek is filling up and it's rising, and then the timing of that can be really bad. And so that's
created a problem.
You can. And so hydraulically, in general, it's a better idea, and that's why we have this in our reg. It's a better idea typically just to let that water go, just to let it go, because when you're holding it back, the timing they don't always help. And so now at the top of a watershed, you want to hold it all back as long as you can. But this is the very bottom of the watershed. I mean, you couldn't get any lower. I mean, we're just next to Stewart's Creek here. So that's the theory behind that.
You really want to let it go, but
What's the range of your letter going to be? Are you going to say that you understand that there won't be adverse impacts on the downstream properties? Or is your letter only going to address this subdivision?
well, at first was, I don't know. We're going to meet the storm event for our storm. If the 100-year storm comes through there, it's all underwater. There's not a pond anywhere that's going to function accordingly to meet the storm events. Everything's going to be flooded as per the FEMA we're not increasing it. We've already met the pre and post as far as runoff.
I just want to make sure you two are on the same page.
Sure.
Yeah,
What-
I'm
we are.
getting him a letter that he's asking for. We're providing that, but yeah, it's
I wrote the letter.
Okay.
kind of, so we're working on the letter, but we are meeting the subdivision regulations short of, I mean, I would like to just discharge it right into the creek. If you want to be, I mean, to be honest with you, versus holding it back, just like you said, but then we're,
And stormwater quality, yeah,
Correct, so-
we have quality, we're talking about a quantity issue, and there's still quality issue. The quality, we'll always have to detain, now, we'll always have to detain something, and it'll be for quality issues.
and what this subdivision does, there's several subdivisions upstream from there that we're also treating before it's discharged. So the water quality is getting treated more than it is now because the quality of the water that's going out now is just shooting right out in the stream through ditches and large pipes under Stewart's Creek and other adjacent subdivisions upstream. Now we're capturing that all in this large pond.
And Jamie, we've spent a lot of time on this, and we're on the same page. We're on the same page. We just want to make sure that everything's covered. And the only other issue that it's not, I don't even know it's an issue. Just the only other thing to note on this pond is that the outlet pipe on this pond are two 36-inch pipes, and then the next downstream structure is about I think 50 feet, and there's a driveway to another pond that's actually just downstream of here that has two 18-inch pipes. And I can't say that those pipes are undersized because, I mean, they're just farm road pipes. You know, I don't know what you actually size those for, but, and all of this is under the 100-year floodplain. So, Jamie's aware of that, and I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I just thought it was something to note. It's that they're, you know, even though all this stuff will be underwater regardless, that the pipes that they're going to are significantly smaller than what they have.
So, just want to make sure I understand. All the homes are already above that 100-year floodplain, so it's not an issue worrying about the homes.
The new homes
It's
not.
an issue of overtopping this levee that goes around this pond, but in a 100-year event, it's already being overtopped from the inside anyway. So if the water is not really flowing back in, it's just filling up a pond that's already full.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you know, as far as the lot design, Jamie's got pad elevations, flood elevations, floor elevations that are going to protect the homes. I mean, that's not a concern. I just want to make sure that you know we've got all our T's crossed.
So we might get some fish in this detention pond, is what you're saying, but it's not going to hurt.
Well,
Correct.
I don't know. I don't know.
Farmer's Road's going to get flooded out, but chances are he's already flooding that anyway because we're not increasing the water that's going through there.
Right,
It's the same amount of water, so his bridge, if it's flooded, it's been flooded.
it's
before.
underwater. Yeah.
Yeah, and his whole road, just about majority of his whole road through there is below the 100-year storm. So even if we put pipes, he's not going to be able to get to the pipes. So you'd be going below it and above two pipes that
So the two 18-inch downstream,
they're actually 14 by 23s just so he could get cover. It's ellipticals.
really, they've been overtopping anyway
Mhm.
all these years, so the water does have a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jamie, this is out in my district, and it's easier to talk about it right here, and it's just water. It's gonna be in, it's gonna be out. But then when it's a flood,
Mm-hmm.
everybody gets excited, and half of them call me, and you know, and there's had to be some boat rescues just downstream from this. My thing is, you know, adding 42 more lots is adding quicker runoff because of houses, roads, driveways, all that. I mean, there's no
Right.
doubt about that. I'm worried about are we at the max on this subdivision on developing, or this area right here on developing? Because I mean, I've always heard, you know, whoever causes the drainage problem, that's who I'm suing. And we've already got some issues downstream here. Now, believe me, it's not a continuous standing water or continued water problem. It's fast in and fast out.
You know,
I mean, it's up and down real quick, and that's what catches people, and why they have to be rescued by the you know, the boat or whatever, because of, you know.
I can understand. But if people downstream are having problems now, they're going to still have problems. We're going to meet the pre and post.
That's not what I'm saying. When we add this, are we adding to that problem? That's the key point right here as far as Rutherford County being in another lawsuit, because if we're adding to the problem and saying, okay, I mean, you're going to be in that lawsuit too, probably. I don't know. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. And I think in my mind, really and truly, I'm concerned for the houses and stuff, but I trust y'all, and that the houses and roads are definitely going to be nowhere in a flood situation, period.
Correct.
And I hope and I pray that. But because then you're talking about potential life situations. So property, land, out structures and stuff, you know, your little barn or whatever at the end of your lot or shed or something, and that's going to have to be, I mean, hopefully folks will take a look at this and put those where they need to be, because their lawnmowers and stuff going to get flooded.
Yep. That's why there's pad elevations and floor elevations on each of these lots for them to abide by.
That's my issue. I mean, we're already seeing problems on down. Was it Pleasant Run? All those sections. That's downstream. You know, this is all above this, coming that way,
Right.
and then eventually going to the lake is where it's going. But I'm just that's my concern right there. Have we developed to the potential, or do we keep developing here?
I can't speak for other adjacent tracts on that. I'm sure they're going to get developed. I mean, I would say yes, the other tracts that surround this will get developed by somebody at some point in time. But as far as our track here, it's fully developed. This tract of land that's been purchased, and we're meeting the current subdivision regulations by providing a pond and meeting the stormwater quality and quantity requirements that y'all are requiring. Like Eric stated earlier, we would like to discharge it straight into the creek before the big impact of the creek reaches down there. That would help not inundate other people. But to meet the quality requirements, like we were stating earlier, you have to detain it to get your stormwater quality and quantity, and that's what we're doing here. So.
Well, and Steve, one of the things it looks like they're doing on this site and these lots, they're increasing the depth of the pond and the footprint of the pond to compensate for your question about extra runoff, roofs, streets, driveways. So that's why the pond's been increased and the depth's been increased, is to capture all that difference in post and pre-construction and post-construction.
Yeah, because we're meeting pre and post the exact same thing that's leaving the site.
This pond here is what, 7 acres?
Yeah, roughly, yes, sir, 7.5.
7.5 or something.
7.4 or something like that.
Jamie, is that pond working as a detention area now, or does it need to be redesigned a little bit?
Well, it's currently acting somewhat of a detention pond during low flows due to the road on the adjacent property and the culverts under it.
The exit pipes.
Yeah, well, he
discharge pipes already
does
in
on
place
his
and
property. On the adjacent tract, there's a road with the 2 pipes stubbed right above that outlet structure there, and it's somewhat during small storm events. When you get into the major ones, it's overtopping the road and everything on his property.
How often does that happen? How often does it happen?
I would say more than, I mean, we're talking about, it's at, 558, and the 100-year storm event's 564, so it's 6 feet below it, so I would say majority of the time. Be my guess.
None of this is visible from the road, so I have no knowledge of. I've never been back there.
I don't know if it can be answered, but you know, the thing that pops into my mind when we're talking about issues, whether it's stormwater issues or just drainage issues, but the 2010 500-year event just comes to my mind, and there were a lot of things that were handled pretty well in this county during that event. What would this piece of property or development look like if it were fully developed and operational back in 2010?
Let me see here. Go to GIS. I've looked. The Corps of Engineers studied Stewart Creek, and a couple months ago we got their report back, and they took high water elevations and complaint calls and every bit of information they could. And they went out right after the storm and took elevations and data, and they did a model to where they modeled the Stewart Creek Basin and looked at it under different rain events. And the outcome was pretty close to this. This is the FEMA 100-year floodplain, and it was pretty close. And so, I mean, if this is pre-conditions, of course, but when you look at this, this is Marathon Drive, which you look at if you're looking at the drawings here, you can see where Marathon Drive comes in, and they're looking to fill this area around in here, and they're going to bring this portion out of the flood zone, and then they're filling these lots as it goes down, and then this track is it also. So they're basically filling all this and filling around these edges, and so. But as far as what it looked like in 2010, I think that blue is pretty close. Now that yellow swath there is the floodway, but the blue is the 100-year floodplain, and that's pretty close. If you'll see this elevation right here, this 564, this elevation here is also a 564, and so this is a backwater. This just tells me that all this drainage that's coming through Travis Estates is coming down. It's just being impeded by when it got to Stewart's Creek. It just bottlenecks, and so this is just a backflow from that. And so, but I feel like that would be pretty accurate. May
So
2010.
right about where your cursor is now is where the 7.5 acre pond's going to be. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So
There's already a excavating site up higher. Is that it up there higher?
This here. Oh no, that's the pond. Here's the driveway culverts we were talking about. I'm gonna remove the floodplain. Those 18-inch pipes are right here, and this is the Willis property to the north. And actually, they've recently got a resource extraction. If I'm not mistaken, you can actually see trucks. They're excavating this stuff too. So
That's a different bar.
it's a different site. But this pond, it holds water and most of the time. And so, but I mean the stream's right here, and as you can see, I mean it's all under the 100-year flood.
The material they're going to raise the elevation, was it coming out of that pond?
It's coming out of this area here. I'll turn the contour zone. You can kind of see the
If
existing.
they're increasing the depth and the size of the pond to move the dirt or material up the hill, that makes more of a retention area down below.
It does. It does.
And so
Yeah.
they're going to go in there and clean up the pit that's there now, make it bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and could possibly improve the situation.
Well,
Where if we were to turn this down, that pit's just going to sit there,
Right.
and I bet it's a little unsightly like it is.
Right. Right. And I want to be clear. I really think they meet the regs, but it's just not a real straightforward one. I just wanted to be transparent with you guys and make sure you understood we've put a lot of time into this, studying and analyzing it. And I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of some of the thought and things that went into this.
Well, I know what you're trying to do is you're trying to predict the behavior of that water. So if you, in that corner, by making that 7.5 acre pond larger and deeper, do you think you're gonna alter the behavior of that water and shift it where it comes down now, where it says Montcalm? You think you're gonna shift that into the
Well,
pond? Is that what you're thinking?
This blue swath here
Yeah.
will be narrowed into a pipe, basically.
Okay.
This stuff, all of this will be raised, but there will be a large pipe there's actually 2 large pipes on the plans that allow this water from Travis Estates to come through. And Jamie, we even tried to look at worst case scenario. Okay, and I call it the dead cow theory. What happens? A cow washes into that pipe and the pipe does not work anymore. What's going to happen? And Jamie went back and revised some lot elevations so that under that horrible circumstance that we hope never happens, that water, when it builds up, it's still going to go through between 2 lots where it shouldn't impact houses. So I mean, I have to give him credit that he has worked with us to try to look at worst case scenarios and try to think this out as far as we can.
Why don't you just put a safety grate on the pipe so the cow won't get stuck? Yeah. Cow picture.
I want to say, I'm very familiar with this area, and I did go into Stewart Springs during that 2010 event just to look, and that I understand was a 500-year event, but the water did come up to within maybe half a foot to a foot of the 100-year line where the engineers said it was going to be. So it was still below the minimum pad elevations, not floor elevations, but pad elevations of those lots in the 500-year event. So they're surprisingly accurate. I have no idea how they figure it out, but it works.
And to that point, Jim, and we don't talk about this much, but if you can see on your screen here, you see the light gray, the light gray here. That's the 500-year FEMA floodplain, and which is kind of funny. I mean, look, there's not much difference from the 100 and the 5-year, and the 500-year is not used for much of anything. There's only a few circumstances where FEMA recognizes it, but it is something to look at. You know, we kind of, it's something to analyze too.
500-year flood. It was bigger than 2010. I have a question, and pardon my ignorance, but will you explain, either one of you, MPE, the difference between the MPE and the difference between MFE? I noticed on some of the lots, some of the field lots have that. Those two
The
categories.
MFE is that's the minimum floor elevation. That's what I call the kitchen floor. I mean, that's your lowest living space. And the MPE is your minimum pad elevation. And that's easily, I guess the easiest way to define it, it's the elevation, the lowest elevation of the dirt that touches the outside of the house. And so whatever that lowest, now it has to extend out for
Where your air
25 feet,
conditioner's
I think.
sitting.
Well, yeah, basically.
Where your
basically.
garage
Or
is.
it's that much higher.
Correct.
Or more further where the floor elevation
Right,
is, no.
right. It don't always happen like this, but in theory, you know, that minimum pad elevation is they're going to go out and set a stake, and they're going to take their bulldozers and they're going to build the actual house pad at that elevation, and then start building on top of it.
So you still got 3 feet theoretically.
Correct.
And that's a Rutherford County. I mean, FEMA just requires, you know, be above their flood elevations, you know, and I'm glad we do.
In the city, it's only a foot.
Right.
Pad
And
elevation.
actually, we're 4 feet. If you look at mine, my floor elevations are 68. The flood's 64. So
The pad's a foot.
another foot.
Crawl space,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
sorry?
actually
crawl
forward.
space.
No, the floor elevation up here, the pad elevation below it. Yeah, well, of course, your crawl space and stuff, you've got to get stuff under there.
Not
You're 30
slabs.
inches. Yeah,
They're not-
correct.
Okay,
If they do slabs, they're going to have to be built
yeah.
that high. Yeah.
Okay.
I know Mr. Everwater, we had talked, I guess last month, about very close to this area where we looked at the church nearby, and we know the drainage issues in the area, very aware of them. So, and we studied this as much as we could to make sure, look at every angle and try to analyze it and work with Jamie to make sure that we were all on the same page. So,
Have you removed enough with what's been removed, with what you will remove in the pond? Will it compensate for the fill? Do you do a calculation there?
well, on this side,
Like, are you replacing what you fill by taking out some over
you
here?
get benefit from a pond when you take that material and you take it to Wilson County. But when you push it, when you just move it in the pond, it don't go anywhere. It's still there. I mean, it's all still there. In this instance, for the most part, it's all still there. It's just, you know, you have to take it well off site.
It's better for them to excavate the dirt there than it is to excavate the dirt 4 miles away and bring it in.
Right.
Right.
Right. That's a whole nother situation. Yeah.
Well, I've heard the county engineers say it met the requirements. In my opinion, it's gonna help to make this pond bigger, clean it up, make it more functional and all. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments, including him getting his letter.
Second.
Have a motion to approve in a second. Any other questions or comments? I know that before we vote, I know that staff has spent a lot of time on this, and I hate to put the staff on the spot, but give us some guidance as it relates to your recommending it.
Well, the first bit of guidance is that little blurb I read earlier in our regs will be the first thing in our glitch ordinance that gets put back in our new regs. I don't know how it got out of there, but it's out of there now. I think hydraulically, I think the intent is there, and I think it's doing. If you look at the big scale, I think it's doing what it needs to be doing.
Back to Steve's point a minute ago, the issue is it's more than just does it meet the regs. You know, the worst thing that could happen would be a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, you got folks that are underwater, and those kind of things just make everyone look a little bit foolish. But I do appreciate all the time that you guys put in this, Jamie. I appreciate all the time that you put into it too, and it's an area out there that we need to put a lot of time into, I think. So
Definitely.
thank you for that. Ready to vote? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
The motion carries. Let the record show there was one no. Item 6B, Ridge Crest subdivision, Section 1. Item number is 13-1007. 14 lots on 6.53 acres, zoned RM, located off Barfield Crescent Road. New South Development is the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is for the Ridge Crest subdivision. Just to show you a master plan, we actually do have one of the entire development. You can kind of see kind of where we are. This is the Crescent Ridge subdivision. As you go farther into the back, you get into Ridge Crest Section 1, Section 2, and 3. And then down here is Ridge Crest, and you'll see that eventually this will come out along Lawrence Lane as Titus Lane has continued to be extended down to the south. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at and where we are on that. Again, from a planning standpoint, we just didn't have just a whole lot of comments on here. The comments that we did make were relatively minor and have been addressed. However, again, Mr. Hill's got some comments regarding the drainage of this subdivision, so I'll turn it over to him.
I'm going to start this by saying that I don't always just pick on Jamie. I promise. It's not a habit. The drainage works on this subdivision. There's just one issue, and I'll start it off by saying this plan has received approval before, and it lapsed, and so they're back. But as you will see on your screen, the area called Detention Pond 1, which is the detention pond for this subdivision, it is not on site. It would be considered off-site drainage. It's on the Lawrence property there. The developer has, with their previous approval, they did put that area into a recorded permanent detention pond easement. So that little section of property is recorded as an easement for detention, but it still doesn't meet our regs as far as we require the detention pond be a numbered lot that has road access just like any other lot, and is owned by the developer basically. And so does the drainage work? I think so, but I can't say that it meets our regs because this is offsite drainage. Mr. Reed may want to address that better, but that's the gist of it.
I don't recall, what's the purpose of the lot needing to have road frontage?
Well, no, we will require a maintenance agreement for this lot, and basically this lot will be deeded to the homeowners association. And so the issue with something like this is access. You can deed it. Well, you can't deed it if you don't own it. You can't deed it, and so you can deed maintenance to it. But long term, if an HOA is, and the Lawrence is maybe fine to work with, but whoever buys that property next, if they put a fence up, I think to try to get around issues like that long term, we did in our regs many years ago. We just put it in there that it had to be on a numbered lot that was owned by the developer.
If there was a recorded access easement to that lot, would that work?
They would do that. They would. I mean, it still wouldn't meet our regs, but they would do that.
That would take away the thing if somebody else came and bought the property. I think Mr. Reed's fixed him back there.
If it's okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. I think I can clarify something.
Stay up there as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Need a chair. At the last planning commission, which I think it was 2 years ago, roughly something like that, this was originally approved. Y'all advised us to get, at that time, a legal recorded document that it was a permanent detention pond, and it's got and we do have a permanent 30-foot detention pond easement going to contiguous with the detention pond lot on lot 124. So as far as maintenance, they do already have access to get to it. They're going to cut, if they mow that, they're going to mow right down that 30-foot easement into the second pond. The two ponds are going to be contiguous with each other. They're going to work in conjunction with each other. So that's how they would access it from lot 124 in that cul-de-sac to mow it or whatnot.
So if it doesn't meet our regs, could we approve it, or would it bounce to BZA after that, or,
I think you could approve subject to basically a waiver request.
Okay.
Approve it subject to that. This isn't its own lot, so it doesn't have to have the 5 acres and all that. And he does have access to it, but it is technically on this larger property, the Lawrence property. But I think if you did want to approve it, just be similar to approving a plat that had like a fire hydrant waiver or something like that. Just making that part of the motion.
And they've gotta go to the BZA to get that.
I don't have to go to the BZA after that, it would stop here.
If you do, if you would like to approve it, I would ask, and Jamie's already agreed to this, that we put an access easement across lot 14. Just not saying they won't access it through that other pond, but they're different sections. There's just,
Yeah,
I can
just
see
as
it.
another access, to have two access points.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, why don't you take 14 or buy the lot and add it in and put a number on it? I mean, is that not,
Well, they've already, I'm not the one that can authorize that. What y'all had asked for previously, and they didn't extend the construction plans to have approved. Y'all had asked that they get a permanent detention pond easement, a permanent one, which is basically the same thing as a recorded lot. And that's what they did. I agree. If we could, they could go back, but I'm not saying, let's just say they can't get that lot. We're back here at the same thing with the permanent detention pond easement, which is to me the same thing as a lot. You can't do anything with it. There's nothing forever. It's a permanent detention pond. That's what it is.
And we haven't changed anything else in the whole
Yes.
plat from what we approved before, and
Mm-mm.
that was 2 years ago.
Roughly, yes, sir.
But 2 years ago, we didn't require it to be on
Stormwater
site.
quality.
Yeah.
If staff's okay with them having an easement across 14, then I hate to send somebody out there where the neighbor could hold them hostage, because they could ask, no telling what, for that spot, and have them in a pretty precarious position right there.
does 123 not do that?
Well, it's a different subdivision. That's Crescent Ridge.
That's not, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
they're not connected. Best case scenario, I'd love to see that detention pond one lot connected through that 30-foot drainage easement there to the existing pond.
Yeah.
Make all that one big lot.
yeah.
Would
We
be
both would.
Best case scenario. Because we have asked the
Not
developer.
connecting the dots there. I understand now there's two different situations there. But that,
When Crescent Ridge, the subdivision to the north was approved, we didn't require maintenance agreements on stormwater ponds. Because these are so closely connected, we've advised the developer that they're gonna have to they're the developer on both properties. They're gonna have to do a maintenance property for both. I don't think it would be accurate to ask them to maintain one and not the other when they're
Which
they're
actually
basically
helps.
connected.
If they did a lot, then he's just maintaining that lot. Then there's no maintenance agreement on the other one. Now you're actually getting both lots, so it, in fact, really better for the county.
Is there, we say permanent, I don't know what permanent is anymore. I don't know, to me, I thought I was gonna be around permanently, but I know that I'm not anymore. So what happens 50 years from now? What happens? These people that own this other lot says, we don't want that detention pond on the development that we're getting ready to put in. So, but what happens 50 years from now?
Well, this is my concern. This is why I like having it being a lot in the subdivision. That scenario, 50 years from now, if the HOA is not active, then it's gonna fall back on us. We're gonna be the ones that are gonna have to, and I don't know what that would mean. That'd be a legal issue, I'm sure, but the stormwater department through enforcement, and whatever we look like in 50 years, would be the ones that would have to enforce that. So that's the issue I have with it not being a numbered lot in the subdivision that's owned by the HOA.
It's
Same
still
thing,
it's
same
recorded.
Happens with homeowner
Yeah.
associations too, though.
Well, you
50
do the
years
same.
Now, the homeowner association is falling in the past tense, and we're in the same shape.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's a recorded, permanent, just like you would do a recorded plat of that one lot, and it's defined as a detention pond, non-buildable lot forever. Somebody come in there and change it, they'd have to put a pond somewhere else to meet the regulation.
And
Jamie, I understand. I think we all understand.
Okay.
What we're discussing right now is that it doesn't meet our subdivision regulations. And when you get to making exceptions to those things, then the next one that comes in, you did this, you did that. So we have to really, I think, make sure that as we go forward, that these type of things are something that we're extremely comfortable with. I have a discomfort with this, but I'm not saying that it won't work and that I'll be opposed to it, but I just have an uneasy discomfort feeling about this, and that and it's not 10 years from now. It's maybe even on further down the road. The homeowners association is non-existent. They're not maintaining that lot. The people who own this farm or this land comes in and says, you haven't met your contractual agreement, the thing is off. You know, I don't know what kind of legal ramifications all that is. I have no idea.
It ends
But-
up in court.
Yeah, and it could be that we're we, the people of this county, are out there kind of hung, and those are the discomfort feelings that I have, and I'm not sure that it's well-founded or not. I just don't know, you guys. I just have this feeling. I don't know why they don't buy the lot, you know. I just don't know why they don't go buy it.
Well, kind of like Will was alluding to earlier, 2 years ago, we went and got this and was told by the body then to get a permanent detention pond. We did. Now, I mean, whoever owns this land right here, the Lawrences, could ask whatever they want. Now they know that he's stuck. He can't do anything.
I imagine there was probably some consideration given at the time that they gave that easement, because you're not just gonna give up, you know, that much of your land without something in exchange,
Yeah.
just because you're a nice neighbor.
Yeah.
So there was probably some consideration, I would think, exchanged then. And the fact that, you know, that it's offsite, I never even liked offsite soils for septics, you know, secondary sites, things like that. So, but in this situation, I mean, I know what a permanent easement is, and, you know, I'm comfortable with the fact that you did exactly what we told you to do 2 years ago. Nothing's really changed. And so I wouldn't have a problem voting for this, knowing that as future developments come up, we're not gonna do this. So we're not setting a precedent to do it in the future. It's almost like a grandfathered situation because of the timing of it.
But it's not grandfather. If they had recorded this plat, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
They
Or
messed up.
extended the construction
Messed up. They
plans
didn't
for a year.
extend this plat or
Correct.
record the plat and all.
That's the
And
key.
I know, like out at Farmington, as the next phase came in, rules had changed. They
Correct.
Go back and
Add them ponds.
redesign and add a pond. It's happening all the time. I mean, I hate to beat anybody up, but somebody didn't do their homework right here. They let their approval lapse, and we're starting from scratch, basically. And so this is approving one that doesn't meet the requirement. And on the last application, the county engineer said it meets our requirement. To me, that's your get out of jail free card. On this one, he said this does not meet the requirement. So I don't think this is a grandfather position. I hate to beat anybody up, but they messed up. Somebody went to sleep here and let their approval lapse. And they've gotten themselves in a bit of a bind. And they're asking us to let them out.
Well, yeah, and 2 years ago. I mean, when they originally looked at this, I think we were a couple months expired past it or something like it when we started on the construction plans. So it's not like it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This was 2 years ago.
But we're
And
still
it wasn't.
approving it.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Requirements.
It's a short period of time that they missed it. It wouldn't.
They can ask for a waiver. I mean, I think that's the option for them, really, is that either buy it or ask for a waiver.
Other discussion, other comments? Thank you, Jamie. Ready for a motion?
Yes, just to make sure I understand, on lot 14, you're talking about an easement along the side of that lot from the road to be able to get back to the pond?
It's already a drain. There's a pipe that runs through there
Okay.
now, and so there's a drainage easement there. But if you're going to approve it with this back there, just another access easement to allow. If there was water in that pond up front and you couldn't access, then this would allow access to this backside.
So legally, they can enter along 14 and get to that site, right?
If
The
they
pond.
had an access easement, yeah.
Right, and legally, the way it's recorded, this is, for lack of better terms, recognized as a lot, a non-buildable drainage, permanent drainage easement.
No. You talking about detention pond 1?
Yeah.
No.
So what,
It would just be an easement. It would just be a pond and an easement on a neighboring
okay,
property.
so the big property, I guess you said the Lawrence family, they still own the property, they still own the pond.
Yes, they own this, all the lots in the back from 10 through 14, that's their western property line. And then they front on Barfield Crescent Road to the east. And then their north property line is just at the back of lot 123 there.
Okay, so what is the legal description, or what is the, how did detention pond one get associated then with this behind lot 14? What legal verbiage have they used? Are they just leasing? I mean, I don't know. What do you? Lawrence owns it, but
They've got, the developers have a permanent drainage detention pond easement for that tract there, which is basically a lot, but it's a permanent detention pond easement.
I interpret that as they have a legal description defining the four sides of that property,
Recorded at the registrar's office.
saying what outlines that property, and then they're saying that everything within those boundaries forever has to be used as a stormwater detention
And
pond.
Lawrence had to consent to that.
They did. They
so
did.
the
Yep,
so
signed
the
it.
Lawrence family, that's hands off. They can't touch.
They
it.
can't touch it. That's
They
what I'm
can
saying.
never- They can never touch
Never,
it.
yeah, I don't know what to discuss, yeah, but you're right.
It says a 42-inch fence required. Who maintains that fence?
Be part of the
Be the subdivision.
subdivision homeowners
Not their
association.
property. Not a lot. Is that part of the HOA?
Well, our maintenance agreement typically wouldn't cover a fence. I mean, it would cover
I just
stormwater
mean,
related,
but-
yeah. But I mean, I
I
don't,
mean, the whole pond for that matter. I mean, it's not, like we mentioned a few minutes ago, it's not a numbered lot in the subdivision. It's off-site.
well, as far as
You
the
would-
maintenance goes, I mean, before we would let them do anything, our stormwater regulations require they have a maintenance agreement. And so that will be
If
for
it
the.
was a numbered lot in the subdivision.
You would reference the
Yeah.
deed book and page versus the lot number.
So
Same thing.
we could make that work. It's just, my concern is, and I see this all the time, we get a lot of calls from people that buy lots that don't really know what's on them. And so somebody buys this lot, and if they did their homework, they would see if there's a permanent stormwater detention pond on it. But somebody buys it and says, well, I don't like that fence back there, and I don't like that little swampy area, so I'm gonna go fill it in. And if it's 20 years from now, and it takes us 6 months to catch it, that's the issues you get into with stuff like this. I think that was the intent of making it be its own lot.
Is there already a pond there or a natural detention area? Or are they gonna excavate out a defined detention area?
It's a natural low area that ponds back over there because of the existing pond on behind
So
124.
you're not gonna go in there and dig that out?
For
They're gonna berm up around it mostly, yes, sir.
several times. One more. But they will have to excavate. I mean, there's the,
You're gonna be on site moving dirt and building a berm and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff?
moving a little bit, yeah. But they do have, it's a natural bowl down there at the bottom
it's
of the Lawrence property.
this area right in here.
Eric, are we the ones requiring the fence?
No.
Because I know sometimes we do require them around a certain size pond.
Right. That I'm aware of. I wonder if that wasn't on their requirement the first time and they just left it on there, but.
Maybe this,
Would you like to comment on that?
If I'm not mistaken, I think the fence is required because it's 2 foot
Is the
in
same.
elevation, and it's either if you're more than an acre or more than 2 foot, you're required to place a fence. I don't want to put the fence up there, but I mean, I can take it off if y'all want me to.
What's the 2-foot requirement?
It was a county requirement. If
But,
the elevation of the pond was more than 2 foot or more than an acre,
More than 2 feet deep.
more than 2 foot deep, or greater than an acre in size.
So it's a safety consideration.
If I'm not mistaken, Eric, was that about?
2 foot deep in an acre, yeah.
It's been like that for years.
Yeah.
it's possible this fella has livestock or horses or something too that needs to be kept out of there.
Yeah.
Things were easier when Dale was here.
I agree. Yeah. Those easy ones, what I want to
Just picking at you, Eric.
Is there a motion, Chairman?
We need one.
I would make a motion to approve based on staff comments. I guess that's all I need to say.
Does that include the easement across lot 14?
Yeah, which
So
is.
that would be
which
in
is
his
part of
comment.
their-
Yeah.
I think something, if you're
wanting to approve this, you probably should put something in there about the waiver for the off-site drainage as part of the approval as well, Mr. Kush.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition?
No.
I'm gonna vote no.
Who knows?
Two no's.
We were gonna call the roll.
Call the roll. I agree. Call the roll. If you would, Gail, please.
Rhonda Allen.
Aye.
Jim Averwater.
Aye.
Veronica Buchanan.
Yes.
Will Jordan.
No.
Mike Cush. Steve Sandlin.
No.
Mike Vaught.
Yes.
Jeff Phillips.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 7, submitted for final plat approval. Item A, Buchanan Estates, Section 6, Phase 3, 38 lots on 21.33 acres, zoned RM, located off Epps Mill Road, Farrer Brothers property applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is the next section of Buchanan Estates, Section 6, Phase 3. You can see that again, it's just an extension here of Buzzard Branch Drive. This is Aldridge Drive right through here. As far as comments from the planning and engineering staff, most of the comments have been addressed. There is just really one outstanding item I did want to bring up, and it regards this particular area right here, Abston Court. You can see, and looking at this, the assumption I'm making, I believe, is correct, that Abston Court's going to continue on down through here, even though there's no road name on this particular stub right through here. When you look at the master plan as well, this road actually extends quite a long ways, and it might be a better idea to call this Abston Drive as opposed to Abston Court. But other than that, that's just something I think that they can take care of on the final plat. I don't think it'll should hold up anything. That's something they could even fix on the Mylar. But all the other comments they had on here, that we had rather, they've taken care of. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is the city, this will be subject to city too?
Yes,
or
thank you. I
is
meant to mention that as well.
Have you
This
been in
is served by
contact with-
city
They good
sewer.
with it?
I'm sorry.
City good with it?
Robert, have y'all looked at this yet? I don't think we've looked at the particular one. Yeah, they will have to get city planning commission approval because this is on the sewer. I appreciate you bringing that up. I actually was in my head, but then forgot. But, yeah, whatever comments the city has, of course, they'll have to reflect that on plan as well.
Doug, would the Decatur Lane be affected with this if it's extending out
Let me go out just a little bit here.
particular area?
Right down through here.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah, without looking at the master plan, I don't have it right in front of me. But this road kind of comes down and over, which I think Decatur Lane does similar. So they're not going to get in the way of each other.
Okay.
Drainage good, Eric?
It's good. Good. Glad to say.
I see a note down here and I'm trying to write. Oh my, maybe I can read it better on that designated area. What is that about?
You talking about this right here?
Yes.
Okay, let me zoom in. This has to do, I'll let Mr. Hill handle this, but this has to do with water quality protection areas within the city of Murfreesboro.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We both have,
Yeah, you can
the
read
county
it.
and the city both have water quality buffers, and the city of Murfreesboro, they require that this verbiage be on all their plats to describe their buffer, but it covers both of our buffers and meets
Gotcha.
requirements.
I've seen it before now. I just, what is that?
Other questions?
Make a motion to approve subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 8, submitted for site plan approval. A, Dollar General, the item number is 13-3020. New construction of approximately 9,100 square feet on 2.9 acres, zoned commercial services, located at 5854 Shelbyville Highway. Monty Turner applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This property should look familiar to most of the commissioners. You'll recall back in 2011, this property was actually brought before you for rezoning at that time to commercial services. To services. It wasn't commercial services yet. The intention at that time was to place a Subway on the property or a restaurant of some sort, as well as a convenience market gas station. If you recall, the restaurant Subway is going to be over here, and at some point in the future, they're going to put the mini market, convenience market on this side. We saw 2 different site plans for that particular development. Ultimately, nothing ever came of it, and no construction was ever begun. When the new zoning ordinance took effect, due to the uses that were originally approved on there, we recommended commercial neighborhood because the uses pretty much fit in with what they were looking for. Since that time, they've asked for a Dollar General to be placed on this property. The property had to go through rezoning. I believe that was June or July of this past year. I think it was June. It came through here because of the fact, it wasn't so much the use of the property, it was because commercial neighborhood limits retail uses to 5,000 square feet. So they asked for the property to be rezoned to commercial services, which allows for larger retail uses. So that rezoning was approved at the Board of Commissioners just this past month. So this site plan is now able to move forward. You can see that they're proposing, this is Ellis Drive, that same access here with Ellis Drive, the one entrance, dumpster area back through here, and they're parking in the front. Pretty typical to what we have come to expect from the Dollar General stores, a typical pattern here. As far as the planning comments are concerned, we did have a number of comments on this. The one comment that still is outstanding is they are proposing to have some lights, not so much in the parking areas, but around the building, more security lighting. Our new regulations for the performance standards do require photometric plans now, just to make sure that there's not going to be a significant amount of light bleed over to adjacent properties. They are showing on their landscape plan buffering all around here, so light spillover really shouldn't be much of a problem. But that is something that we do require to see in the file. And I talked with Mr. Reed prior to the meeting. He's aware of that. But with that, I will turn this over to Mr. Hill. I do believe he's got some concerns with the drainage.
Well, the drainage on this one works. I just wanted you guys to be made aware that if you remember when this was a Subway, the drainage is basically the same. But this one actually has a BMP called an Aqua Swirl. If you remember, we talked about that a couple months ago when it was a Subway. And so the same designs in, those work, and they will allow them to get their 80% removal. And so that works. But it'll be our first in the county of an actual BMP device. They go pay money, buy a structure, bring it in, and that's what they does a portion of their stormwater quality for. So, but everything looks good and meets all our requirements.
That's a device that has to be cleaned out periodically.
It does, and we will have a maintenance agreement. And of course, a site plan is different than a subdivision, because it's privately owned, and we will have to do our stormwater department will do inspections periodically and make sure that it's being maintained. And they will have a maintenance agreement recorded with us that will ensure that they do that.
If they're not maintained, what's the outcome?
We have our stormwater department is set up. We have finding abilities and other sources of action.
Thanks.
Does the plat show where it's going to be located?
It is it'd be grading and drainage. If you have, do they have these?
Yeah, they
On your paper sheets, it's page 4, and it is. If you look there at the stormwater pond at the bottom, you'll see a B, a C, and a D, and there's a square box between them. Just to the left of that square box, there's a circle, and it is that circle.
You said that's already in, or that is,
No.
they would have to have that?
They will have to put it in. It was just on the other design for this property.
You know if they've used them before?
I do not know.
I'm Doug Jenkins with SEC Engineering. Yes, we've specified these on several sites in the city and the county.
I was just curious if it was your first one as well, so.
No.
I've seen them demonstrated. I mean, they're effective. They're effective. I'm not concerned about them at all.
And then are they, Doug, are they showing where the sign's going to be? Are they going to have a sign by the street, or is it all going to be on the building?
Let's see. That's a concrete monument. Just looking at this, it's not. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. It's right here. If you can see the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, of course, one of the comments we always make on signage is that just because they show it on the site plan's approved doesn't mean the sign itself is approved. We do look for that, but the sign has its own, they have their own approval process they have to go
It's
through.
lit, does that fold into that photometric plan?
It would be.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll make a motion we approve as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve. And a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9 is our staff reports, and I believe there's some zoning ordinance amendments.
Yes, sir. Just bear with me just a second here. I want to pull up something that I completely forgot that I wanted to pull up. Okay, here we go. Let me just zoom into this here so we have a.
That looks good.
Not real.
Well, this is, and thank you for bearing with me just for a minute there. You'll recall at our last planning commission meeting, we had a
That's
public
Florida.
hearing.
Thought you were
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
ready to
this
show-
isn't here. But you'll recall we had some, right.
Looks like Will. Looks like Will's playing.
We had
A
a,
yard sale. Yeah.
we had a public hearing about our exterior display and exterior storage regulations, and one of the comments we received, I believe, Mr. Everwater, I think this is kind of what you're wanting to avoid, is this kind of a situation. And we're not picking on these folks by any means. Of course, this is not here. But this was a situation that it started out innocently enough, but then over time it just became what you see here. So as I understand, this is really kind of what you were wanting to avoid when it comes to exterior display. Let's minimize all this, sorry. So what we've done, and also with the other condition, or the other concerns that the Planning Commission had, we have made some changes to this. And I'll just really go over it in relations to Chapter 6, because really the changes were the same for the rest of the chapters as well. There's no sense going through all of that. But you can see one of the comments that I remembered getting and I had written down was we wanted to be flexible with storage on those lots that may have, because of their size or their shape or something like that, had some concerns or had some issues with the outdoor storage. So under A there on 605, I add a little verbiage in there where it says exterior storage of goods, materials, other property is permitted only in the rear of the building, but then unless otherwise shown and approved as part of a site plan review. Now, that could be either by the planning commission or staff. I know there are certain site plans that really don't make it to you because they're not large enough. Most of the ones that you'll probably be concerned with here probably would, but there is the chance that there are a few here and there that staff would have to approve at administrative level. So I think that kind of gives us that flexibility that we were looking for there. Now, to help address the concerns, Mr. Everwater, that you had, if you look under B, under exterior display, items 2 and 3, Item 2 deals with this display area itself, shall be maintained in an organized fashion, shall not include goods, items, or other property not normally for sale at the place of business. So if you have a particular business that sells, we'll just use a car lot for an example, that they don't start putting outdoor displays of just general merchandise on the property. I think that will address that. But I think number 3 really kind of gets to the crux of what we were trying to address. That the goods, materials, and other property offered for sale in the exterior display area must be of such a nature that they are not typically located within a permanent building or structure, such as vehicles, trailers, farming equipment, and landscape supplies. And then further on where it says those goods, merchandise, and products that are typically located within a permanent building, such as clothing, those kind of items, shall not be offered for sale in an outdoor display area. So I think that addresses that concern that, at least I from the research we've done. And I'm not going to say that I, through my intelligence, came up with that. That was something we found in another ordinance somewhere, and I thought worked very well for, we adapted it, of course, for ours. But I think that takes care of that issue. The last issue, if you flip the page there on the back of that first page, there were some concerns about what exactly the type of surface that we were looking at. What is I forget the word I even used at this point. An appropriate surface, one that, we didn't go into a whole lot of detail about that. But you see, we've kind of changed that. Exterior display areas shall be constructed of a compacted soil, gravel, or other asphaltic or concrete surfaces. And again, as approved as part of a site plan review, and then graded to prevent ponding of water. So I think that gives a little more guidance in that particular item. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have in relation to this.
Can you put the picture back up?
I can.
So if I own this and you guys come and give me trouble, why can't I just say, well, that's all for sale?
Well, I think a lot, and it obviously I can't sit here and see just what exactly, I can't tell what some of this stuff really is. But it looks like a lot of it, just from looking at it, is not things that you would normally see outside. These are not the things that you would normally store outside. That goes back to number 3 we just talked about a minute ago. You know, they shall be such a nature that they're not typically located within a permanent building, such as your vehicles, trailers, farming equipment, landscaping supplies. These would qualify as goods, merchandise, or products that aren't typically that are typically located within a permanent building or structure. So that's how I would address that, Mr. Kush.
Yeah, books, clothes, vacuum cleaners, all that kind of stuff. How indoor furniture usually stays inside.
Right.
On the porch.
On the porch, yeah. Where the washing machine goes.
So would this be up to codes to enforce?
Well, it would be our zoning enforcement officials. Yes, ma'am. I mean, just like
Nice.
anything we have. David Jones's folks. Yes, ma'am.
And you discussed this with him? Has he seen it?
You know, I don't know if I don't think I have shown in this. I probably should do that. I apologize. We came up with this verbiage, and I talk to David pretty frequently, but I don't think I had shown in this particular amendment. But I can do that pretty easily.
Well, he's here. We can ask.
Oh, there he is. I'm sorry.
Some of the enforcement is hard, and the more you can define outdoor storage and put a definition to it, gives us more teeth in court, of course, on doing away with those gray areas. So if there's some more wordage that can go in here, I'll get together with Doug and we'll try to define it a little bit closer. I think I know where Mike's going with it. It just
That's
looks
the
like
problem.
all of this is for sale, and that's what they could say. And of course,
That's the-
you're up in front of the judge trying to define it. You know, if you don't get rid of those gray areas.
Yeah, and this is one of those areas where it's really hard to get black and white. There's always going to be some gray area, and that's where we just need to fall on the judgment of the codes.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking, even before you even get to court, how are you gonna counsel them to be in compliance? What words do you need to be able to say this, if you'll do X, Y, Z, this will make you in compliance? And so that's kind of what I'm looking for as well, is just clarity to make sure that,
Right.
You know,
that they know how to comply.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What wouldn't be a bad idea is to have a series of pictures like this.
Don't
of
do
what's
this.
acceptable and what's not acceptable. You know?
No matter how you word it, somebody get around.
I think we're on the right track.
Push
I definitely think we're on the right track.
Because, you know, some old
Push it a little
codger will
bit.
say, well, yeah, that's organized, and yeah, it's all for sale.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, what's the problem? Sure.
We'll work together to try to define it a little bit better.
David, are there any instances, I mean, you're around the town all the time. Are there any things that you see around town on a regular basis that you say, oh my gosh, that's an eyesore, or any kind of products in front yards that?
Everything. I mean, we run across everything out in our county. We normally act on complaints only unless it's a life safety issue. If it's a health issue or life safety, we will address it ourselves, but we only have 2 officers covering the entire county, and we answer several calls a day on substandard properties and outdoor storage, things of this nature.
Are there a lot of appliances kept in the front yard, or
We have appliances and
how about building materials? I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that
We
somebody
have-
could say, that goes outdoors. But
we have everything. I've seen everything.
So, David, you bring up a good point. It's not just the neighboring landowners that can call and fuss. If I'm driving down the road and see this, I can pick up the phone call.
That's
make a
correct.
call,
Yes,
and-
we
and
take
make a complaint.
random anonymous calls.
Okay.
They don't have to be documented in our office as far as us investigating it. And then once we investigate it to the point to where we know it's a violation, then we can hang our hat on a zoning ordinance that enough evidence is gathered at the time of that first initial inspection. We do the legal letter out and go from there. Give them so long to clean it up or protest it to the building official. That's where Doug comes in with the zoning ordinance on a legal definition from the zoning ordinance.
Of course, you're gonna have abuse no matter which way you go.
Right.
Because I know of a case where a neighbor turned their neighbor in because there was a dispute between them anyway.
Right.
Because their wheelbarrow was outside their little storage building and said that was a code violation and a shovel. And there's other places where people have lumber and pallets stacked up in the yard for years and you can't get rid of that, you know,
Right.
but so we need rules on one hand, but on the other hand, gotta be careful what rules we get, because then you get in the middle of neighborhood disputes. Somebody gets mad at somebody and they say, well, I'll turn them in because they're parked on the grass instead of on the gravel, or they're something like that, so.
Yeah.
We gotta be careful.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get away from that gray area in that outdoor storage.
See, the more I look at this picture, the more I like it. It's even got a landscape buffer. I mean, it's.
I thought that's what we were striving for.
You'll give us a revised copy of this maybe the next time we meet after you and
Sure.
David are able to get
At the
together.
night meeting, or do you want it at the day meeting?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready to present.
Doesn't matter, but you're gonna do some more work on it, bring it
Yes, sir.
back.
I'll do that.
We're big on that. Everything we bring up, we're gonna work on it and bring it back.
I think we were scheduled to do some training this morning, but there's some reasons to postpone that. New employee coming in, that, you want to comment, Doug?
Yes, yeah, we had talked originally about doing some training today, but in light of the meeting that we had at the Planning Commission regarding the subrigs last time around, of course, the regulations themselves were adopted effective October the 1st, but we're still kind of out there with the sprinkler requirement, and I'll talk a little bit more about the fire hydrants here in just a minute. But we're still kind of discussing that, so we wanted a little more time to kind of get that shored up, if you will, as well as the fact that Mr. Hill is going to be in the process. Actually, tomorrow we're going to be interviewing some new stormwater inspectors, so we thought maybe it'd be a good idea to have more of the staff on board, the new staff, to present that training. So at this point, we're shooting toward the end of September, because we know we should have that person on board by then. Did you want to add anything else? Okay. So just look forward to that at the end of our September meeting. Just real quick on the fire hydrant requirements. After the discussions we had, our planning commission, the commission asked me to take a look into some of the neighboring jurisdictions about how they do that measurement for fire hydrants, if it's as the crow flies or as the truck drives, for lack of a better way to say it. What I have found, I talked about 6 different, or at least corresponded, either email or talk with 6 different jurisdictions around us. The majority of them do measure it as the truck drives. There was really only one that I talked with that did it as the crow flies, like we do, and there was one that's kind of a hybrid of the two in a way. They worked closely with their fire department. This was Kudletsville. They worked closely with their fire department, and while it may not meet the raw number in the regulation, which I think was 1,000 feet in their regulations, their fire department would tell them, you know, it actually makes more sense to put the hydrant over here than it does over here, even if technically it met the regs over there. So they kind of, it was more liberally applied is how he placed it. But the majority of what we do see is as the truck drives, based on the regulations that we've looked at and the conversations I've had. So from there, I guess we'll just look for guidance from the Planning Commission if you want to have some more discussion about that. I know that Mr. Honeycutt and Chief Farley are both present. At least I think Chief Farley, yeah, he's still here. So
Was there any question about distance to structure? Because the way I interpret it now, it's the edge of the lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be sitting on a 100-acre farm, or your lot could be 1,000 feet deep, your house could be 500 feet off the road, and, you know, my house meets the requirement, and it's gonna be close, but on the 1,000 feet, but my lot, I'm on a farm, is within 50 feet of the hydrant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if I'd built on the very back of my farm, I'd be half a mile from the hydrant, and I was
ISO recognize it from the hydrant to the structure.
to the structure.
It's got to be from the structure.
That's why we're adamant about the 1,000 foot. It's gotta be from the hydrant to the structure.
Larry, could you come up to the, just for the microphone?
I was under the impression that the way our regulations, when they went to the edge of the lot.
That's, well, I'll let Mr.
Well,
Chief
me
Farley
and
talk.
Honeycutt looked at this, and ISO requirement from the hydrant to the structure, not the lot, because you'd brought that up that night about it, it being within a mile or 1,000 foot from the hydrant to the corner of the lot, and then the house being about a mile off the road, it's to the structure. So if your lot is within 1,000 foot of the hydrant and you're half a mile off the road, you're a class 10 or 9 or whatever it would be.
But as far as approving lots and plats and things like that, how are we going to look to the structure or to the lot?
Well,
edge of the lot?
well, our current regulations state the lots, and we didn't really change that under the new regulations. Now, and I'll be honest, when I asked the question that I did about as the crow flies or truck drives, that was the limit of the question that I asked. I didn't go beyond that. I just said, hey, how do you measure that? So to answer your question about was that to the lot or the structure, at this point I don't know, because I really just asked them.
Well, I know I'm opening a whole can of worms. We could get into talking about sprinkling houses that are on the back of somebody's farm or something, because I doubt CUD would let somebody pull an 8-inch line and put a hydrant back there just because of fresh water requirements. They're not going to let somebody put a hydrant, even if they wanted to pay $20,000 to get it back there or something. So.
Well, our concern in a subdivision reg is when you got all these houses side by side, it's a lot more convenient and a lot more time efficient for the fire department to have that 1,000 foot to be able to lay out, and especially when you got a lot of houses in one section together. It just makes it, it's a lot safer for us, it's a lot faster for us, and that way the quicker we can establish a water supply and attack the fire, the quicker we can save more property.
So what's your suggestion, Doug?
Well, I was really reporting back to you just to let you know what I found out. I mean, I'm really kind of open to guidance from the Planning Commission at this point. If you want us to make more of a formal presentation at a subsequent work session, that's perfectly fine. We're happy to do that. I just kind of need to know which direction you want to go in.
Why don't we wait until we get some feedback from the county commission, which I think the whole sprinkler section in our subdivision regulations is going before the county commission at their meeting. I believe
12th,
it's on September the 12th, Thursday, September the 12th, and then we can discuss it after that. It might make a difference. That discussion might go in a different direction depending on what they say. Okay. That sound all right to everybody? But be prepared to provide us with
yes, sir,
some recommendations.
Yeah, and we can start doing some research into that anyway. As far as some of the other questions that were asked today, we can start finding that out.
So, just a question for information. Will the full commission be able to vote to change the language from 1,000 feet? Or,
no,
as a crow flies.
No, sir.
As a crow flies, and
no, that'll be an amendment to the subdivision regulations, which will stay here. I think Mr. Phillips was probably talking in regards to the sprinkler requirement and what happens with that in that next month's meeting.
Do we have to have a public hearing before we change that, or we just change that?
No, that still has to have a public hearing.
It will have to.
Yes, sir. And 30-day notice. So it's when we finally make the decision, we'll have to, do 30 days out of that. So probably about a month and a half before we hear it, after we've determined which direction we want to go in.
You done?
Yes, sir.
Eric? Welcome to our world. You've been in our world for a while, Eric, but not having to sit there and take it like you had to take it today. Good job. Our next meeting, look at your calendar, is scheduled for Monday, September the 9th. It'll be a 6 p.m. meeting. Also of interest to us, more so than normal, the county commission will meet on Thursday, September the 12th at 6 p.m. in the courthouse. And part of that agenda will be a discussion on our section that we removed on the sprinkler option.
Are you presenting that, or is Doug presenting it? Is Josh presenting it?
We don't know.
All of the above, probably.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be Doug. Okay, but those of us that are familiar with the whole process, be prepared to answer questions from the commission or someone else, okay?
Repeat that date.
It's Thursday, September 12th. Does that look right, Steve?
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
It's 2 weeks from Thursday, basically.
It's Thursday, September 12th at 6 p.m. Also, a couple of little things. Our Monday meeting, 6 p.m. meeting on November the 11th, Doug has brought up his Veterans Day. We can schedule that to the following evening, I believe, if folks want to. Or we could go ahead and have it on Veterans Day. I guess it's up to us. What do you want to do?
County offices closed on Veterans Day?
I don't
Yes,
know.
yes, sir, they are.
They are.
That'd probably be bad to have to bring everybody in that had the day off.
12th is fine.
Okay. If we can move it to the 12th,
Yeah.
Doug, you may look and see if there's any major conflicts.
Right, I'm not aware of any, but I'll double check with the mayor's office to make sure that there aren't any.
Is that a 9 a.m. or 6
That's a
p.m.?
6 p.m. meeting.
6 p.m. meeting, so why don't you, we'll go ahead and pencil that in, and if there is no major conflicts, we'll just meet on the 12th instead of the 11th. And,
It's in October, right?
October.
November?
November,
November.
that's November,
Okay.
okay.
We'll have to worry about it for a while then. We'll worry about that in
Be here
October.
before you know it.
One other thing, our Monday 9 a.m. meeting on Monday the 25th of November is Thanksgiving week. There are those that report trips planned, out-of-town trips planned, and we're considering canceling that meeting unless there's something that's really urgent that comes up. So keep that in mind. If there's nothing that urgent that comes up, we'll just cancel that Thanksgiving week meeting. That's a 9 a.m. meeting, okay?
Yeah, and something to think about. I mean, we do something similar to that in December. We just have the one meeting, and if that's the direction you want to go, and we don't have to decide that tonight or today, but if you want to go in that direction, that'll give us time to change our submittal deadlines and everything. We'll just do it similar to what we do for the December meeting. We just say plats and plans, rezonings, everything's going to be due at this one time, and we'll just present everything at the one meeting. So that's fine with us if that's what you want to do.
As we enter that holiday season, it might add to our agenda for the 6 p.m. meetings, but it'll also clear up our calendars as well as staff's calendars to take care of vacation times and other things like that. If that's okay with everyone, we'll plan on doing that, but there could be something to come up that would really be important that we meet, and we'll put it back on the calendar if that happens, but as of right now, let's postpone that meeting, okay? Anything else? You guys remember Pettis, if you would, and Doug, if we hear anything later
I'll pass
today
it
or
along.
tomorrow,
Yes, sir.
pass the word.
Yep, I will do
Okay.
that.
Very good. Anything else? Thank you. We're adjourned.